Hello and welcome. I'm going to talk about pulse and glide. Pulse and glide is a driving technique that's used to save fuel. How could speeding up and slowing down possibly save any fuel? Shouldn't it be more fuel efficient just to drive smoothly and go at constant speed? Well, I'm going to do a demonstration here, and then we're going to go out on the road and we're going to do an experiment. We have an engine. This engine is turning. I'm using a certain amount of power to turn this engine. If I create more power, the engine turns faster, faster, faster. If I reduce the amount of power, the engine will coast down. So some amount of power results in some amount of rotation. Obviously, less power, less rotation, more power, more rotation. This engine is not connected to anything. I have a gearbox. I can connect the gearbox to the wheels of the vehicle. If I shift into gear, now some of the energy is going from here into here. Before, when it's in neutral, there's no power transfer. This is 0% efficient. There's no efficiency here. If I shift into gear and I start turning this engine, it's going to transfer energy. There's going to be some kind of efficiency here. So we went from no connection, 0% efficiency, to connection, some efficiency. If I change this gear ratio, if I make this gear ratio so that this goes farther for one of these, then it's going to be even more efficient because this thing is going to use less energy. This is a smaller piece of the pie at that point. So this thing takes energy. If I'm trying to drive a vehicle, I don't want this thing taking up all my energy, right? I want this to be a very, very small piece of the pie. It's kind of necessary. I need this. I can't power the wheels unless I'm doing something here. But I want every one of these strokes takes energy. Every rotation, this crank takes energy. I want to increase the load on the engine, change the gearing here so that I don't have to turn this as much. I'm actually okay turning this, a little bit harder to make this turn more so that I get more efficiency. So this is how pulse and glide is supposed to be more fuel efficient. So I rev it up and it coasts. Now it's going to glide. And then while I'm gliding, this isn't using very much energy. Now when you're driving a car, you can't just turn the engine off. It's not very safe or practical to do that. So I'm going to be idling the engine. I'm going to be turning it as slowly as it'll allow me to turn. Once the vehicle slows down too much, then I just bring the speed back, right? So if I want this to rotate a million times, I could just rotate this a million times. And that would work, if this is a 1-to-1 gear ratio. But I could also just run this up really fast and let it coast down. And now this is making revolutions, and this isn't making revolutions. So this isn't using any energy, and this is just operating off of the stored kinetic energy. So I pulse, I speed up. This is now storing energy. Now this is going to power the vehicle. Not this anymore. This isn't powering the vehicle. This was powering the vehicle earlier, but now this is just saying you're not. It's just idling. If this slows down too much again, this is how pulse and glide works, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Just to give you a little more footnote about pulse and glide is really more of a technique just to drive in a way that uses less energy, uses less work. So there's a couple different things that there's a couple different things that the car needs to overcome in order to drive down the road. So I have to overcome the resistances inside the engine. Pulse and glide is just to reduce the number of times the engine has to turn over. It's to reduce the amount of work required to operate the engine. The reason we don't just keep accelerating, the reason we don't put a really high load on the engine, just keep accelerating, is because obviously the car also has to push air out of the way. That also takes quite a bit of work to accomplish. So the reason we don't just go faster is because the change in the air drag increases with the square of the change in the speed. It might be the square, it might be the cube, it doesn't really matter. It's exponential. That's all you need to know right now. So we don't want to keep accelerating forever and ever and ever. Eventually we want to slow down so that we can not have insane air drag to deal with. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is the way this experiment is going to go. I have the scan gauge here. I can manipulate the scan gauge to go to my trip. I can go to my current trip and I can reset my current trip. So I can drive up to a certain point, like a sign, for example, and I can just simply reset the trip and then just drive and just see how it's like to, what kind of efficiency I get when I'm driving that particular way. So I could also, I'm not going to change the fuel economy on the computer here, but I'm going to keep the computer. I'm going to watch my fuel economy on this computer so I can drive, because I can't drive this car without monitoring. But the scan gauge will show me what my current trip is. So I can drive up to a sign, drive a certain way. Well, I can drive up to a sign, reset the trip, drive a certain way, and then see how that affects my fuel economy. And that's exactly what I plan to do. So I have this stretch of road. It's a 1% grade going downhill. It's on the other side. There's 2 roundabouts. I could use the roundabouts to turn around super easily. There's 2 lanes, so if I'm slowing people down, that's not a big deal. How the experiment's gonna work. When I go the other way, I'm gonna go up to 40 miles per hour. I'm gonna set the cruise control in 6th gear, and then I'm just going to, I'm gonna do 1 run, cruise control 6th gear, just cruise control 6th gear the entire time. That tree is gonna be my endpoint. Then I'm gonna do another run that's pulse and glide. I'm gonna pulse up to 45 miles an hour, and then I'm gonna glide down to 36 miles per hour. In theory, since the air drag is higher at faster speeds, I'm gonna spend less time over 40 miles per hour, and I'm gonna spend more time under 40 miles an hour. So I actually need to spend a little bit more time. I actually need, my pulse needs to be a little bit faster. So my top speed needs to be a little bit faster to make it fair, to make it so that I have an average speed that's closer to where it is in cruise control. So I'm going to do 1 run like that, and then I'm going to do 1 run that's pulse and glide, no cruise control, no neutral either. I'm not going to shift to neutral. And then I'm going to do 1 pulse and glide run, and then 1 more cruise control run in 6th. So it's kind of like a mirror image. So I have cruise control, pulse and glide, no neutral. So really there's no glide. Then I have pulse and glide, and then cruise control. I'm gonna go ahead and get my cruise control speed set to 40. That way I have it when I get up there. That way I can just, so that sign right there, that speed limit sign, that's gonna be my, that's where I reset my trip. Y'all are gonna get to watch all of this with no cuts. That way y'all can't say I fudged the numbers. Y'all get to watch the entire thing. Lucky y'all. And this roundabout comes up, this 40 sign comes up really quick, so I'm gonna get my speed up pretty quick here. I'm gonna have my hand on the reset. As soon as I cross that 45 sign, I'm gonna reset. Alright, so I reset, and it looks like I'm already doing 116 miles per gallon, and I'm very excited to see what that's going to be at the end. So when I'm going to try to start the pulse and glide at 40 miles an hour. I'm going to try my absolute best to finish it at 40 miles an hour. So it's looking pretty good so far. We got 86 miles per gallon. Let's check out the engine load right now. So we have an engine load of 26%. You can see what that point gallons per hour is looking like. Hopefully, I strongly hope you can see that. It's a very low engine load. The engine's basically doing nothing right now. So we have the current trip, 75.9 miles per gallon. There's no wind today. You can see the temperature is 51 degrees. And that
really big tree up there, that's my cutoff point. It's the tree that's right next to the white fence. Was looking pretty good at 74.5 miles per gallon, but I think we can get over 100 with Pulse and Glide. I'm guessing. So this is actually perfect conditions for Pulse and Glide. So there's that really big tree. So it looks like 75.1, 0.3, 0.4, 0.6. That's the last number. So that's our first run, 75.6. With just cruise control staying in 6th gear. Obviously, Pulse and Glide going uphill is going to be a lot more difficult. Just for funsies, we can keep the same trip and see what my fuel economy looks like on the return trip. It's already dropped all the way down to 55. So I'm gonna start the Pulse and Glide at 40 miles an hour. I'm gonna start by pulsing past 40 miles per hour to 45, and then I'm gonna glide all the way down to 36. Once I get to 36, I'm gonna pulse back up to 45. That's the goal. Because I know this is gonna work, I'm not just making this video because I don't think it's gonna work. I already know this works, so I mean, it's obvious. Now, it may not work as much as I think it does, but I know it's going to work. So it looks like past, when we come to this white sign here that has the roundabout instructions on it, about 53.3. That one, going back the other way is not really scientific because I can't control what happens at the roundabouts. Alright. So we're getting back up to 40 miles an hour. Get that cruise control started, reset the trip. So 52. So we're gonna get that cruise control started, pulse up to 45, and glide. So we're already at 50, so this is lower than it was earlier. I think it was like 100 at this point. But we have a lot of distance to cover. We have a lot of gliding we gotta do still. So let's check out the engine load now. Scan, trip, gauge. So we have an engine load of 19%, 17%, using 0.2 gallons per hour. We can go back to the trip function here. So we're already at 114 miles per hour. There's 36 miles per gallon. So we're gonna pulse. I'm actually gonna show you what the engine load is as I pulse. It's not 100%, it's kind of high. But I'm gonna pulse all the way up to 45. And back to the trip. So we're over 70 We're over 75.6. That's what it was earlier, right? Or over 80 right now. And as we pass that tree, I'm gonna speed it back up to 40. And I might even hold it at 40 if I have to make it fair. So you can see I drop from 45 to 40 way quicker than I do from 40 to 36. All right, so I see the tree, get it up to 40 again, so that way it's fair. And I might even hold it at 40 for just a second. So there it is, 40 miles per hour, 85.6, 84.9 is what it was. 84.9. Earlier, with just cruise control, it was 75.6. So Pulse and Glide is already looking about 13% more efficient, maybe 12% more efficient. I can actually just put this on gauge. I really don't want to get in front of anybody up here, so please go to gauge. Thank you. I think once I reset it, I can just go straight to gauge. I've got my average trip fuel economy in the bottom right corner there. So you can see that 61 since I reset it last time. I'm actually going to try Pulse and Gliding here just because I don't want to be too close to this person. It's not really Pulse and Glide. I'm just coasting in neutral because I don't want to go too fast. I could slow down in gear, but my engine RPM is a lot lower right now, so it takes less work. This run we're going to do Pulse and Glide just with no neutral. We're just going to pulse up 45, slow down 36, pulse up 45, slow down 36. This is like a person who just learned how to drive and they're not really good at holding a constant speed yet. This one, I suspect this one's going to be the lowest of all three, because driving a constant speed is a lot more efficient than slowing down and speeding up, unless you're using neutral. And remember, the reason we use neutral is so that we don't have to rev the engine as much. And going 34 miles an hour here, last time I think we were at, actually I don't remember, I had to look it up. Getting the speed up to 45. And resume. Okay. I'm gonna hold my button on the, oh no, trip. No, trip, reset. Oh, that's not really fair. All right. This one's probably not gonna be very, very honest. I'm not gonna go to neutral, I'm just gonna pulse in. I'm actually gonna change lanes here just to, so I don't aggravate the snot out of these people behind me. So this is definitely going to be the worst one. All right, let me think. So this is the only one where I will be coasting in gear. Oh snap! I have cruise control still on. That's not really fair, is it? This is the only one where I will be coasting in gear. It's not gonna be for the whole run, of course. It's kind of skewed, but I'm gonna bring the speed back up to 45, then we're gonna coast down to 36 again. we're engine braking. We're driving completely for free right now. All right, there's 36. I'm gonna bring the speed back up. As long as I pass that tree going 40 miles an hour, then it's fair. So I'm gonna go up to 42 and we're gonna coast again. All right, now I'm gonna hold it. 69.8, 69.5. So the coasting in gear, 69.5. Pulsing and gliding in gear, 69.5. So that's already the lowest of them. Just to make it so that's less likely to happen later. We're gonna go back to reads. That one wasn't the most fair though. I can't go back to the other screen until I've reset for the next trip. So we had 75.6 to stay in cruise control, and then we had 84.9 not using cruise control, using pulse and glide and using neutral. When we pulsed and glide and didn't use neutral, it was 69.5. Now we're gonna do the pulse and glide run again. And we're gonna finish it off with just another cruise control run. Which, to be perfectly honest, the one back there, it wasn't the most fair because I didn't start it at the same spot as the other ones. And I did use the cruise control for a little bit of it too, but I didn't go into neutral. So, but we did find out that if you drive smoother, you are going to get a little bit better fuel economy than if you're driving, you know, like a pig. The Pulse and Glide so far is still the best. We still got 2 more runs we're gonna do. So this is going to be a Pulse and Glide using neutral. This time we're gonna get up to speed. We're gonna set the cruise. We're gonna reset the trip, and then we're gonna start pulsing and gliding. I think I might have to. All right, so I got the cruise resume. Nope. And then reset. Reset. Damn it! Thank you. All right, so now we're gonna start. We cancel the cruise. Change lanes for this person. I'm going to start gliding. So we're gliding in neutral. We can change the trip, not the trip. We want to go to gauge. Looks like I'm going to be annoying some people. All right, it's almost at 36. We're going to start pulsing. You can see my pulse width, 55% engine load. So it's not high engine load, but it's definitely high enough. I'll go a little higher as we get up in RPMs. And then 45 miles per hour. So now we're going to start gliding again. Already up to 76. We're gliding, but we're probably gonna have to pulse again. Yeah, we're gonna have to pulse again because we gotta pass that tree going 40 to make it fair. Oh, these poor people behind me, I'm not slowing them down that much. They can pass me if they want. All right, so there's that tree. I'm gonna pulse back up to 40 just to make it fair. All right, I'm gonna hold it at 40. 81.8, 81.8, the second pulse and glide. I think I used a little bit less engine back there. I think I used more load the first time. I think that's really the only major difference between those two runs. One more run that's just cruise control. That's going to conclude our little science experiment. So the first pulse and glide we had 84.9. I used more engine that time. I was definitely working the engine a lot harder. The second time I was still using pulse and glide, but I wasn't using as much engine load. I think the first time I was using more like 60 to 80%. I think the second time I was using more like 50 to 60, maybe 50 to 70. So pulse, using the engine more will probably make you even a little bit more efficient. Really lugging the engine is probably going to make you more efficient. Now, should you lug the engine? No. The difference between 75 miles per gallon and 85 miles per gallon is so insignificant, it's not worth destroying your car for. Now, the way I do pulse and glide here, when I glide, I glide in neutral. I don't push the clutch, so I'm not wearing out my throw-up bearing. And then I will rev the engine while it's still in neutral, and then I will really quickly push the clutch and grab the gear, and then it's barely going to do anything to the car at all. The car doesn't really care the way I do it. Does it put a little bit of wear and tear on the car? Yeah. Are my rev matches perfect every single time? Absolutely not. So every time I pulse and glide, I am putting a teeny tiny itty bitty little piece of wear on my clutch and my throw-out bearing, and probably the synchro for 6th gear. If I'm pulsing and gliding in a different gear, maybe a little bit of wear on that gear also. Am I really that concerned about it? Of course not. Now we're to reset the trip here, make sure this person doesn't. Okay. We're gonna go here. I have the trip ready to reset. We're gonna get the speed up. We're gonna get the cruise control on. I have my finger on the reset button. All right. So I'm expecting 75.6 again. I'm expecting it to be really, really consistent. But we'll see. We'll see. This is gonna be the real apples to apples test to make sure everything's good. Because there's really no variables here. The car is doing all of the work. The car is a lot more consistent than I am. So we're looking like high 80s right now. I can show you guys the engine load again. So we're at 26% engine load, which is nothing. Especially, I mean, people are really scared to drive at low RPMs. Sometimes in their engine, like if you got a fuel injected car, you don't need to be that worried about low RPMs. Now, even a lot of carbureted cars don't really care that much. If you got something from the 70s or older, yeah, probably don't drive at low RPM for a long time. It's probably not going to do you any good. However, this car is fuel injected. This car doesn't care. This car comes with a CVT. That CVT will keep you at 1200 RPM all day long. Where are we at right now? We're at 78.4 miles per gallon. Hopefully you guys can see that, 78.4. I can't really make it any more obvious. So there's the tree, 78.6, 78.8. 78.8 is the second run. That's the last run we're gonna do. So between the first run and the fifth run, maybe the temperatures are going up, maybe the wind's more a tailwind right now. But I try to do the I try to mirror it. That way anything that's changing is gonna be in favor, on the front end and not be in favor on the back end. So what did we learn? We learned that driving sloppily, speeding up, slowing down, being aggressive is definitely not going to help your fuel economy. We learned that driving smoothly is better than driving sloppily. And we also learned that pulsing and gliding, using neutral, will help you save a very small amount of fuel. I mean, if you do the averages between the two, I think we had like 81.8 and 84.9. If you do the averages of those, that's like 83.6 or so. If you do the averages between 75.6 and 78.8, what is that? Like 77 point... What is that? 77.3, I think? 77.4, I'm not really sure. But let's just say 77.3 and 83.6. That's a really, really small difference. Really, 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 really small difference. And that was a pulse and glide situation where gravity was actively helping us. I would not pulse and glide going uphill. I would just leave it in 6th gear. So what do we learn? Pulse and glide does help fuel economy. Does it help a lot? Not really. Now this car has a pretty decent 6th gear. Like it's pretty decent. If you're driving an MB Miata and you're doing 4 grand at 75 on the highway, you're gonna be wasting a lot of fuel. Now if you're on the highway going 75, you're in a hurry somewhere, you probably don't want to pulse and glide. Maybe if you're in a Miata, you're going 50 at 2600 RPM, in 5th gear. That's that type of situation where you just don't have a really good overdrive gear or no overdrive gear at all. It's probably going to help you more because, like right now, I'm just in 6th gear. The engine is revving lower. Like pulse and glide is to reduce the number of engine rotations. If you just have good gearing, you don't really need to pulse and glide. So the benefit is going to depend on the situation. If you're going downhill with a tailwind, maybe pulsing and gliding is super worth it. Maybe it's not worth it to you. Maybe you have enough of overdrive. Maybe you don't want to do it. Maybe it's too much work. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Look in the description. There's going to be some more information kind of like some mathematical examples just to give you some more context, hopefully convince you a little bit more. I tried to make this as ADHD friendly as possible. I don't know if I said that right. I tried to make it as unboring as possible. I don't know if I succeeded. Thank you guys for watching. Any comments, let me know. Any gripes, complaints, let me know. Have a great day.